We talked about the addiction to pornography. Why do people get so addicted to porn?
Thank you. That's a good question. And just to show us that people are actually really hooked on this thing, I'd love to go through some statistics. So this was a short statistic that was taken in the States, which says that more than 40 million Americans are regular visitors to porn sites. The average visits last 6 minutes and 29 seconds. There are around 42 million porn websites, which totals around 370 million pages of porn. The porn industry's annual revenue is more than the NFL, NBA, and MLB combined. It is also more than the combined revenues of ABC, CBC, and NBC. That is basically saying this is a multi-billion dollar business. Yeah, 47% of families in the world report that pornography is a problem in their home. Pornography use increases the marital infidelity rate by more than 300%. By marital infidelity, we are talking about matters to do with mpango wa kando, adultery, and also divorce. 11 is the average age that a child is first exposed to porn, and 94% of children will see porn by the age of 14. 56% of divorces involve one party having an obsessive interest in pornographic website. 70% of Christian youth pastors report that they have had at least one teen come to them for help in matters that relate to pornography. Higher, 68% of church-going men and more than 50% of pastors view porn on a regular basis. Of young Christian adults, that is 18 to 24 years old, 76% actively search for porn. 59% of pastors said married men seek their help for porn use. 33% of women aged 25 and under search for porn at least once per month. Only 13% of self-identified Christian women say they never watch porn. 87% of Christian women have watched porn. 55% of married men and 25% of married women say they watch porn at least once a month. 57% of pastors say porn addiction is the most damaging issue in their congregation, and 69% say porn has adversely impacted the church. Only 7% of pastors say their church has a program to help people struggling with pornography. And we can see here that truly this is it's like a pandemic. It's a problem in the world, whereby if we are having statistics where tunaambiwa around 5.7 billion people in the world are actively that is subscribing to pornographic websites monthly, then that tells you, or those are the regular visitors in these porn websites, then out of a population of 8.0 something billion, so it's in kusema only 3 billion people are not watching pornography. So it's a real issue, and maybe one of the reasons why it is people get so easily addicted is of that issue venye tulikuwa tume-explain on those hormones, because that dopamine, it's a real thing, and it actually gives you real feelings of pleasure. There is some extent of pleasure, but now unapata the more somebody engages in it, ndio kitu we are talking about, somebody comes to a place of tolerance, whereby now your brain reduces the dopamine level and reduces the transmitters, the dopamine receptors. Then because of that, somebody responds by now increasing the use of the substance or the behavior in order to achieve the same high that they used to achieve as before. So one of the reasons it's so addictive is because like that pleasure, your pleasure ako ka your raha, like that pleasure iko sasa, but now unapata it's more of destructive. It's destructive in nature because it's hijacking the normal functioning of the body. And also there's the part of deception. There's a lot of deception by the enemy. 2 Corinthians tunaambiwa that we are not ignorant of the ways of the enemy, and his best tactic is to use deception, whereby what unapata the main goal of the enemy is instant gratification of the flesh rather than delayed gratification of the spirit. Yes.
Thank you so much. And is pornography spiritual? Because those numbers, okay, so we're only like 3 billion of people who are not watching pornography. It's so unfortunate and so sad, because this is something that is not good. And I think peer children nowadays in this generation, they do watch porn, which is so unfortunate. Inawafanya even when they grow up, yani they are just disrupted kwa mind and everything and their behavior. So is this thing spiritual?
Yes, it is very, very spiritual. In fact, I don't know now if here we will go to scripture, but any part of, I think when you look at scripture, especially Old Testament, any part whereby you have any form of unrestrained sexual pleasure, it is actually a form of demonic worship. I get this from, we can look at Exodus chapter 32, whereby we were having the story of Israel. Yes, Israel at Mount Sinai. And now we see that when Israel was there at Mount Sinai, what was happening? That Moses went up, alipanda mlima, kupanda mlima, watu wakasema, huyu jamaa tujui kata rudi, maybe ashanyuria na ni hivyo. So now what happens? Wakasema, akaambia Aaron, bana we, cheki, tunataka Mungu bana. So Aaron akaambia, remove the earrings, then we make a golden calf. Then I don't read just some verses ambayo inasema, that's verse 6, Exodus 32 verse 6, which says, then they rose early on the next day, offered burnt offerings and bought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Now that is NKJV ndo inatumia the wording ya rose up to play, but ndo nafungua hapa my good news translation, it actually puts it as something else that kidogo tu ndo naifungua. Yeah, it actually puts it as in 1 minute. Yeah, that early the next morning they brought some animals to burn as sacrifices and others to eat as fellowship offerings. The people sat down to a feast which turned into an orgy of drinking and sex. Unaona sasa?
Yeah.
So you see, you ask yourself, what was the inspiration that when they are worshipping a golden calf, they decided to get nude? They started to engage in orgies. That means mass sexual what is it called hii kitu sasa nitaekaje, yani walikuwa wanafanya ile kitu in public wakiwa watu wengi. And then when you look at the same chapter but verses I think it is 25. Yeah, verses 25, I want to read it, and this is what it says, that Moses saw that Aaron had let the people get out of control and make fool of themselves in front of their enemies. So you see, when people start taking off their clothes in a manner that, in a setup that is not of marriage, the devil is actually pleased, because unaona here, while they were worshipping this golden calf. Now Deuteronomy 32, this is what tunaweza soma. Deuteronomy 32, let me nifungue tu haraka. It says this, Deuteronomy 32 verse 17, it says, they sacrificed to demons, not to God. To gods they did not know, to new gods, new arrivals that your fathers did not fear. So we are told that even here, these sacrifices that they were making, the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, they were actually to demons. And what was the form of worship? It now came in form of, tunaambiwa that they were orgies and they were having sex. And also playing music, because Moses akishuka alisema anasikia, alikuwa nafikiria ni vita, kumbe it is music. So this is now where tunakuja kusema, because look at even in the garden, what happened? Satan through deception got Adam and Eve wakakuwa naked. Actually the garment that God had given them, that garment of because tunaambiwa that God dwells in an approachable light and man was made in the image and likeness of God. And so unapata there are people who might speculate that initially man had been covered with some light, some garment of light, but immediately that they sinned, that garment was taken away. And what happened? They now said actually that we are naked. So unapata that the moment mtu anaanza kutoa nguo in a manner that is not in a marital setup for sexual intimacy, yeah, that is actually worship. Because what is worship? Worship basically, ukiangalia from the Hebrew, it's a word that basically means reverence, obeisance, or in simpler terms, obedience. That's what let's get, just like Romans 6, to whom you obey, you are a slave